South Korea does not want to enter the Russia-Ukraine war. It has laws against sending weapons to active conflict zones. But now it says it may have no choice because North Korean soldiers have already joined Russia's war effort.
If true, this marks a dangerous and highly concerning development.
If they would be sending troops to Ukraine, that would mark a significant escalation.
And this is the first step to a world war.
North Korea maintains one of the world's largest standing armies, more than 1 million active duty soldiers. South Korea, we tend to think of as primarily making phones, TVs, cars, Samsung, LG, Hyundai, Kia, but it's also a major exporter of tanks, warships, fighter jets, and missiles. So, what does involvement of the two Koreas actually mean for the war?
What else is North Korea getting in return? Because certainly they're not sending troops for free.
Last week, South Korean intelligence published what they say is photographic evidence that North Korean soldiers are currently in Russia, getting ready to fight. Here are two satellite images that they say show several hundred of them stationed at Russian military bases deep in the country's east. On Telegram, a self-described independent media outlet in Russia posted a clip of what it claims are freshly arrived North Korean soldiers outside a Russian barracks. And this video, shared by the Ukrainian government, claims to show what it looks like inside one of those bases. Long lines of North Korean soldiers receiving Russian uniforms and equipment. They even shared a form those soldiers had to fill out, indicating the size of their headgear, clothing, and shoes, with instructions and measurements in both Russian and Korean. Now, the thing with all of these videos and images is that they're very difficult to verify. Even the United States and NATO have been slow to independently confirm what both the South Korean and Ukrainian governments swear is true, that North Korea has crossed a red line, sending manpower to Russia's war for the first time since it began.
We are consulting with our allies and partners on the implications of such a dramatic move.
North Korea has been willing to provide military assistance to Russia in its war. It's been consistent and very vocal about its support for Russia, but it has not crossed that threshold in the past.
What are the implications of this? South Korean intelligence claims North Korea has already sent 3,000 soldiers of about 10,000 on the way in all. Now, to be clear, if North Korea sends somewhere between 10 and 12,000 troops, as many media have reported, it's believed that might constitute roughly 4 brigades of several thousand men each. But in the context of Russia's overall forces, consider just their casualties. According to the Ukrainian army, nearly 700,000 soldiers killed or wounded. Now, this figure is in dispute. Russia admits to only a tiny fraction of these losses, and it's impossible for us to verify death counts independently either way. But manpower is a critical need of the Russian army. It has only become more difficult over time to find enthusiastic volunteers. And even if North Korean troops aren't exactly battle-ready, or at least battle-tested, they haven't had any major involvement in a war since the 1950s.
A lot of those soldiers have been used for construction units and free labor within the countries.
Experts believe they could be used almost as garrison forces, primarily on defense in non-conflict zones so that Russian forces can go on offense.
So I would suggest that the benefit predominantly is indirect. By being in Russia, taking over the duties of Russian troops not deployed in active combat, it allows those Russian troops to be deployed in active combat, thereby increasing the overall presence of Russian forces in combat against the Ukrainians.
It's not expected at the moment that these are going to be combat troops on the front line. It's anticipated there'll be more of a supporting function. But even there, of course, they free up manpower for Russia to use in its assault on Ukraine.
And this would only add to what South Korea believes are munitions shipments from North Korea to Russia delivered over the past year. More than 13,000 containers filled with more than 8 million artillery and rocket rounds. These images provided by South Korean intelligence, again, unverified. But both the US government and UN sanctions monitors have reported North Korean ballistic missiles being fired into Ukraine.
On the 30th of December, 2023, Russian forces launched at least one of these North Korean ballistic missiles into Ukraine.
That revelation from White House National Security Communications Advisor John Kirby was followed up with another, that just days later, Russia launched several more North Korean ballistic missiles into Ukraine as part of a broader overnight aerial attack.
This is a significant and concerning escalation in the DPRK's support for Russia.
In April, Reuters would report that according to UN sanctions monitors, debris from a missile that landed in Kharkiv on January 2nd was North Korean.
This footage is from days after the January strike.
And this notion of North Korean weapons finding Ukrainian targets would be reinforced once again as recently as last week, with South Korean intelligence showing what they claim are remnants of short-range ballistic missiles and RPG anti-tank rockets recovered from the battlefield by Ukrainian defense intelligence.
We heard about the Ukrainian shell famine when their own supplies of ammunition were simply not sufficient and they were not able to respond in kind when being bombarded by Russia. And the millions of shells that have been supplied by North Korea have been a major part of that.
Now, when we're talking about weapons of war, they are not all created equal. It is unclear how reliable North Korean weapons really are.
The equipment is old. They haven't had access to procure newer technologies and newer hardware for a very long time.
Which could make North Korea's contribution more about volume and bulk than it is about adding some new capability that Russia doesn't already have.
The fact that they're older doesn't mean they're irrelevant on the battlefield. They work in artillery systems. They're able to hit targets as intended, and they're able to inflict incredible damage.
But it's worth mentioning the true significance of all of this may be more about what North Korea's participation means than what it actually does.
Some people are saying it's a sign of desperation of Russia, that they can't actually cope without these reinforcements from the outside world. Another way of looking at it is that actually this is simply Russia demonstrating it has options, it has friends, and it has people that it can call on to support it.
Last June, Vladimir Putin traveled to Pyongyang to meet Kim Jong-un. They seemed to get along well, even took turns driving each other around. But more importantly, they signed a mutual defense pact, an agreement to come to the other's aid in the event of aggression against either country. Ukraine's incursion onto Russian soil likely counts.
Russian forces vowing to launch an all-out offensive after Ukraine's surprise attack into the Kursk region on Russia's western border.
This may help explain why North Korea has leapt so readily to Russia's aid. But of course, it's not just that.
No country has been willing to have military cooperation with North Korea in decades, basically since the fall of the Soviet Union. So this is a very beneficial arrangement for the North Koreans.
North Korea becomes seen not just like a little pariah state that no one talks to, but no, they have a bilateral defense agreement with Russia. They are sending troops to Russia. That means they're a player on the international scene.
And that trajectory, North Korea's potentially expanding profile on the world stage, may be what brings South Korea into the war. It's easy to forget sometimes that North and South Korea are two countries that are still technically at war. They have been for 70 plus years. But there's both a lot to say and very little to say about how South Korea might become involved in the war between Russia and Ukraine. And I'll explain what I mean. On the one hand, we know so much more about South Korea's military capability. Like North Korea, it has one of the largest armies in the world. Military service is compulsory for men. It has steadily built its way to becoming the 10th largest arms exporter on the planet. Like, you've heard of Hyundai, but maybe you haven't heard of Hyundai Heavy Industries, currently the world's largest shipbuilder. South Korea has developed some of the world's most advanced battle tanks. It has a thriving export business in fighter jets, and it would represent a dramatic shift if the sum total of the country's defense industry were somehow mobilized in Ukraine. but it won't be.
South Korea's stake in all of this is really much more focused on supporting NATO, supporting US, and supporting democracy in general.
I couldn't fathom it, that you would have South Korean troops going to Ukraine. It's just inconceivable.
I think that would be a step too far. I think the big question right now is a question of lethal aid.
I said at the start, South Korea has, since the very start of this war, almost 3 years ago, it has resisted getting overly involved in this war. It's widely reported that it has sent equipment to clear landmines, stopping well short of sending any kind of lethal aid. But South Korea has now stated, for the record, in response to North Korean troop movements, we would consider supplying weapons for defensive purposes, and if it seems they are going too far, we might also consider offensive use. This is because it views North Korea as a constant threat, their nuclear neighbor to the north, whose isolation and unpredictability make it dangerous. And when your enemies make friends, your position weakens. South Korea has threatened to get involved in Ukraine before, most recently when Russia and North Korea signed their mutual defense pact back in June. But back then, the threat may have seemed more hypothetical. Now, believing North Korean soldiers to be on Russian soil, the threat may appear more real. So, there are at least two dimensions to everything we've talked about. The most immediate, what this means for the future of Ukraine. We don't know how North Korea's contribution to the war will change over time, nor how South Korea will react. But longer term, relationships between major and emerging world powers are being forged and reforged in real time. That is a much more difficult chess game to predict.